When Emma's credit card got declined at the upscale restaurant, the last thing she expected was for her date, wearing a faded thrift store jacket, to pay with crumpled bills he counted out slowly, one by one, while the waiter's lip curled in disgust. Emma wanted to sink through the marble floor of Mercado and disappear forever. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her face burning as Jake Morrison pulled another wrinkled 20 from his pocket. The waiter stood there with the leather bill holder, his expression somewhere between pity and contempt. This was what she got for letting her best friend set her up on a blind date. Mara had been so insistent, practically begging. You haven't been on a date in 8 months. This guy is perfect for you, he's genuine." Genuine. That was code for broke, apparently. Jake didn't seem bothered by any of it. He smoothed out the bills carefully, counting them onto the little tray. 73, 74, 75. His fingers were steady, unhurried. Like he had all the time in the world while Emma died of embarrassment. She'd known this was a mistake the moment she'd walked into Mercado an hour ago. Mara had insisted on the restaurant, her choice, not Emma's, and Emma had protested that it was too expensive. But Mara had waved her off. "Trust me, you need to make a good first impression." Well, that had backfired spectacularly. Jake had been waiting at their table, and Emma's first thought had been, okay, he's handsome. Really handsome. Dark hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it on the way over, strong jaw, eyes that were an unusual amber brown in the restaurant's soft lighting. But he was dressed in worn jeans and an old jacket that had definitely seen better days. And when the valet had brought up his car after they'd ordered, someone had blocked him in, apparently. Emma had glimpsed a beat-up Honda Civic that looked older than her student debt. That debt was the reason her card had declined. She'd known she was cutting it close this month, but she hadn't expected the humiliation of it happening in front of a stranger. "There we go," Jake said, adding the final bill. He looked up at the waiter with an easy smile. "Keep the change." The waiter's expression shifted slightly. The change was generous, Emma realized with another flush of shame. He took the tray and disappeared. "I am so sorry," Emma said again, wishing she could rewind the last 10 minutes. "I thought I had enough on that card. I'll pay you back, I promise. I get paid on Friday, and I can Venmo you." "Hey." Jake's voice was gentle. "It's fine." "Really?" "It's not fine. This is mortifying." "Why?" "Cards get declined. It happens." He leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. Besides, the food was good. Worth every wrinkled dollar. Emma managed a weak laugh, but inside, her anxiety was spiraling. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of when Mara had suggested the blind date. Emma could barely keep her own head above water. She was drowning in student loans, her salary as a marketing coordinator was laughable, and her apartment was a shoebox in a questionable neighborhood. The last thing she needed was to date someone who was struggling just as much as she was. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, the same lecture she'd heard 1,000 times. "You need to marry stability, Emma. Love doesn't pay the bills." She hated that her mother might be right. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Then again. And again. "You can check that," Jake said, nodding at her bag. "No, I'm sorry. That's so rude. Emma." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "Check your phone. It's clearly important." She pulled it out, and her stomach dropped. 7 missed calls from her boss, Richard. 3 texts, each more urgent than the last. "Call me now." "Where are you?" "Helios is leaving. This is an emergency." "Oh no." Emma's hands went cold. "Oh no, no, no. What's wrong?" She was already standing, grabbing her purse. "I'm so sorry, I have to, my boss, our biggest client is," the words tumbled out in a rush. She pressed Richard's contact, her heart hammering. He answered on the first ring. "Where the hell have you been?" "I'm sorry, I was at dinner, I didn't hear." Helios Industries is threatening to pull their entire account. They're furious about the campaign revisions, and they want answers now. I need you to send me every file we have on their project, and I need the original pitch deck, Anne. Emma was already walking toward the restaurant's entrance, her mind racing through where everything was saved, which computer had which version. Jake appeared beside her, leaving cash on the table for the valet, more crumpled bills that made Emma want to cry. Richard, I can have everything to you in 20 minutes. I just need to get home, Anne. 20 minutes? Emma, I have Helios on the phone in 10. This account is worth $500,000. If we lose them because you were unreachable. You won't. She forced herself to sound calm. I promise. The original pitch deck is in the shared drive under Helios Final and the campaign revisions. She continued explaining as the valet brought Jake's car around. Jake held the door open for her, and she slid in, still talking rapid fire to Richard. The car was as old as it looked, the upholstery worn but clean. Jake drove without a word, seeming to understand that she needed to focus. Emma pulled up files on her phone, forwarding documents to Richard while explaining where he could find backup materials. Okay, Richard said finally. I've got most of it. But Emma, why did they hate the revisions? We did exactly what they asked for in the last meeting. Because, Emma rubbed her forehead, thinking. Because we took their feedback too literally. They said they wanted more edge, but what they really meant was they wanted to feel cutting edge, innovative. We gave them edgy graphics instead of showing them how they're industry disruptors. There was a pause. That's actually brilliant. Hold on. Emma gave Jake her address, and he nodded, navigating the streets smoothly. She noticed he drove well, confident but not aggressive. Emma? Richard was back. How would you reframe it? She closed her eyes, visualizing the campaign. Their product isn't just another tech solution, it's the first of its kind in green energy integration. We should be positioning them as pioneers, not just participants. The whole narrative needs to shift from look at our cool features to look at the future we're building. Can you write up a one-pager on that approach? Right now? Yes. I can do it in the car. She spent the rest of the drive typing frantically on her phone, her thumbs flying over the screen. Jake pulled up to her building, one of the older ones downtown, with a broken security door, but she barely noticed. I'm so sorry about this, she said, not looking up from her phone. This is the worst date ever. I don't think so, Jake said quietly. That made her pause. She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since they'd left the restaurant. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something between admiration and amusement. You're impressive when you're in crisis mode, he said. The way you broke down that problem for your boss, that's not standard marketing stuff. That's strategic thinking. Emma blinked. Thanks. How long have you been in marketing? 3 years. This is my first real job out of college. And you figured out the Helios issue that fast? Jake shook his head slowly. You're better than you think you are. Something warm bloomed in Emma's chest, but she pushed it down. She didn't have time for this. I really need to go finish this document. Of course. He reached over and opened her door from the inside. The outside handle was broken, apparently. For what it's worth, I had a good time tonight. Before the card thing and the work emergency. Even though I had to leave in the middle of dessert. Especially because of that. His smile was crooked. You're real. That's rare. Emma felt her face heat again, but for a different reason this time. I should go. Can I call you? She hesitated. Jake was handsome and kind, and he'd said something about working odd jobs over dinner, which meant he probably didn't have a steady income. Emma couldn't afford to date someone like that. She couldn't afford to date anyone, really, but especially not someone who paid for expensive dinners in wrinkled bills. But she heard herself say, yeah. Sure. His smile widened. Great. Good luck with Helios. Emma climbed out of the car, her phone already buzzing with another call from Richard. She waved at Jake and hurried inside, her mind already back on the campaign. She didn't see the sleek black Mercedes that had been idling down the block. Didn't see it pull up alongside Jake's Honda as he pulled away from the curb. Inside the Mercedes, a man in an expensive suit pressed his phone to his ear, frustration clear on his face. "Sir, you can't keep doing this. The board meeting started an hour ago. They're furious. Mr. Morrison, please." But Jake, or whoever he really was, just kept driving, his beat-up Honda disappearing into the night. Chapter 2. Emma told herself she wouldn't text him first. She lasted exactly 36 hours. The Helios campaign had been saved, barely, and Richard had actually complimented her work for the first time in 3 years. She'd been riding that high when her phone buzzed with a message from Jake. "How did the crisis turn out? Did you save the day?" She'd smiled despite herself and texted back. That had been 4 days ago, and they hadn't stopped since. Jake was funny. Not trying too hard funny, but genuinely witty in a way that caught her off guard. He sent her memes about corporate life that were so accurate she wondered how someone doing odd jobs understood office politics so well. He asked about her day, actually listened to her complaints about Richard's micromanaging, and somehow always knew the right thing to say. "Richard sounds like he peaked in middle management and never recovered," Jake had texted last night. The kind of guy who CCs everyone on emails to cover his own ass. Emma had laughed out loud in her apartment, startling her cat. "How do you know that?" "Lucky guess. I've met the type." She was curled up on her couch now, supposedly working on a presentation for Monday, but really just waiting for her phone to buzz again. This was pathetic. She was 26 years old, drowning in debt, and getting butterflies over text messages from a guy who paid for dinner in crumpled bills. Her phone lit up. Question: if you could have dinner anywhere in the world, where would you go? Emma typed back, "Anywhere I can afford." "So? Chipotle? Come on. Play along. Money's no object." She thought about it. "Okay, fine. There's this place in Paris called L'Ambroisie. 3 Michelin stars. I read about it in a magazine once." "You?" The response came quickly. "Good choice. Their wine list is exceptional. I'd probably pick Osteria Franciscana in Medina. Best pasta I've ever had." Emma stared at her phone. Then read the message again. Their wine list? Best pasta he'd ever had? She started typing. "Wait, you've been to these places?" The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, saw a documentary about them. Bucket list stuff, you know? Emma frowned. That was weird. The way he'd written it had sounded like first-hand experience. But maybe she was reading too much into it. Her phone buzzed again. "Speaking of food, when can I take you to dinner again?" "Somewhere cheaper this time, I promise. I'm running low on wrinkled bills." She laughed, and just like that, her doubts faded. He was self-deprecating about the money thing, which somehow made it less awkward. "Actually," she typed, "I have a thing this Saturday. Company fundraiser, very casual. Outdoor barbecue, live music. Want to come?" She hit send before she could overthink it. A work event was perfect, casual enough that Jake's clothes wouldn't stand out, public enough that there wouldn't be any pressure, and it would give her a chance to see him again without the intimacy of a real date. "I'd love to. Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself. Fair warning, my coworkers are, a lot. Can't be worse than some people I've dealt with." Emma smiled. "You say that now." Saturday arrived with perfect weather, clear skies, warm sun, the kind of day that made Seattle's reputation for rain seem like a lie. The fundraiser was being held at a park near the waterfront, with picnic tables, a beer garden, and a local band setting up on a small stage. Emma had changed outfits 3 times before settling on jeans and a casual top. Not too dressy, not too shabby. She wanted to look good but not like she was trying too hard. Jake was waiting by the entrance, and Emma's breath caught. He was wearing jeans again, probably the same pair, and a plain t-shirt under an unbuttoned flannel shirt. His hair was slightly messy, like always, and he was checking his phone with a slight frown. When he looked up and saw her, though, his whole face changed. That smile, the one that made her forget about her student loans and her mother's voice in her head. "Hey," he said, slipping his phone into his pocket. "You look great." "Thanks. You ready for this?" "Should I be nervous?" "Probably." She led him toward the crowd of her coworkers. The marketing team had claimed a cluster of picnic tables near the beer garden, and Emma could already see Veronica holding court, her voice carrying over the music. Veronica Chin. No relation, thank God, though Emma sometimes wondered if sharing a last name with the snake in heels was some kind of cosmic joke, was everything Emma wasn't. Perfectly styled hair, designer clothes that somehow looked casual, and a trust fund that meant she treated their marketing coordinator's salaries as fun money. Emma. Veronica waved, her smile sharp. "Finally. We were wondering if you'd show." "Wouldn't miss it," Emma said, knowing it sounded fake. She felt Jake's presence beside her, solid and calm. "Everyone, this is Jake." "Jake, this is everyone." Her coworkers mumbled greetings. Veronica's eyes slid over Jake like a scanner, taking in every detail of his worn clothes and old sneakers. "Jake," Veronica said, her smile widening. "How nice. How do you two know each other?" "Blind date," Jake said easily. "Best decision I've made in months." Emma felt her cheeks warm. Veronica's smile turned poisonous. "How sweet. And what do you do, Jake?" Here it was. Emma had known this was coming, but her stomach still clenched. Jake didn't hesitate. "I'm between opportunities right now. Figuring out my next move." "Oh." Veronica's tone dripped with fake sympathy. "That must be hard. The job market is so competitive these days. Especially if you don't have the right connections." She turned to Emma. "Where did you say you found him again?" "My friend set us up," Emma said, her voice tight. "How democratic of her." Emma's hands curled into fists. Jake touched her elbow lightly, a silent message, "I'm fine." But Emma wasn't fine. She could see some of her other coworkers exchanging glances, and Richard was standing nearby, watching the whole thing with raised eyebrows. "You know what?" Emma said, louder than she meant to. "Jake's the smartest person I've met in months. He gave me better business advice in one dinner than I've gotten from actual consultants. So maybe between opportunities just means he's smart enough not to settle for the first corporate nightmare that comes along." Veronica's smile froze. "I'm sure he's very resourceful." "He is," Emma said firmly. She grabbed Jake's hand. "Come on, let's get a drink." She practically dragged him toward the beer garden, her face burning. Behind them, she could hear Veronica's laugh, high and cruel. "I'm sorry," Emma said when they were far enough away. "She's awful. Everyone knows she's awful, but her dad plays golf with the CEO, so she gets away with murder." "Emma." Jake's voice was gentle. "I really don't care what she thinks." "Well, I do." That was humiliating. "For who?" "Her. Because from where I was standing, you just defended me in front of your boss and your coworkers. That took guts." Emma looked up at him. His amber eyes were warm, without a trace of embarrassment. How was he so calm? "It's not fair," she said quietly. "She doesn't even know you." "No, she doesn't." He squeezed her hand. "But you do. That's what matters." Emma wanted to believe that. She wanted to forget about Veronica's judgmental stare and her coworkers' whispers and her boss watching the whole disaster. She wanted to just enjoy the day with Jake. They got beers, cheap ones from a keg, which Jake paid for with exact change, and found an empty table away from the marketing team. Jake asked about the fundraiser, what cause it was supporting, and Emma explained the local literacy program their company sponsored. That's actually great, Jake said. Literacy programs don't get enough funding. Most corporate donations go to flashier causes. How do you know that? He paused, beer halfway to his lips. I read an article about it. Philanthropy trends or something. There it was again. That slight hesitation, like he'd almost said something else. Emma was about to push when someone called her name. She turned and felt her heart stop. Marcus Chin, the Marcus Chin, CEO of Helios Industries, the client who'd almost fired them last week, was walking toward their table. He was everything a powerful CEO should be, tall, sharp suit despite the casual event, and an expression that could freeze fire. Emma Chin, Marcus said, his voice clipped. I didn't expect to see you here. Mr. Chin. Emma stood up quickly, nearly knocking over her beer. This is a company event. I work for. I know where you work. His eyes slid past her to Jake, and something changed in his face. Something cold and angry. Morrison. Emma looked at Jake. His entire demeanor had shifted. The easy warmth was gone, replaced by something harder. He stood slowly, and Emma realized she'd never seen him stand at his full height before. He was tall, broader than she'd thought, and suddenly he didn't look like someone who was between opportunities. He looked dangerous. Marcus, Jake said, his voice flat. Still playing your little games, I see. Marcus's jaw was tight. Some of us have real responsibilities. Jake's eyes flashed. Some of us remember where we came from. The air between them crackled with tension. Emma looked from Jake to Marcus, completely lost. They knew each other. More than knew. There was history here, something personal and bitter. Gentlemen, she said, trying to sound professional even though her mind was racing. Maybe we should. How's the family business, Morrison? Marcus cut her off, his attention still locked on Jake. Still running from it? I'm not running from anything. No? Then what do you call this? Marcus gestured at Jake's clothes, his whole appearance. Slumming it? Playing dress up? Some of us didn't have a choice about working our way up. We didn't get to pretend to be poor for fun. Jake's hands clenched. For a moment, Emma thought he might actually hit Marcus. Then his expression smoothed out, went carefully blank. You're right, Jake said quietly. You didn't have a choice. Neither did a lot of people. That's exactly my point. Marcus shook his head, disgust clear on his face. You're wasting your potential. Your father would be. Don't. The word was sharp enough to cut. Don't talk about my father. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Marcus straightened his suit jacket and turned to Emma, his professional mask sliding back into place. Ms. Chen, I came to inform your supervisor that Helios will be continuing our contract. Your work last week was excellent. We'll be in touch Monday to discuss expanding the campaign. Thank you, Mr. Chen. He nodded once, gave Jake a final look that Emma couldn't decipher, and walked away. Emma waited until he was out of earshot before she rounded on Jake. What the hell was that? Jake was staring after Marcus, his jaw still tight. It's complicated. Complicated? He knew your name. Your last name. And he said something about your father, and a family business, and Emma's mind was working overtime, pieces clicking together. Jake, who are you? I'm exactly who I said I was. No, you're not. You pay for dinner in crumpled bills, but somehow you've eaten at Michelin-starred restaurants. You work odd jobs, but you know more about business strategy than half my coworkers. And Marcus Chen, one of the most powerful CEOs in the city, clearly knows you. So who are you really? Jake finally looked at her, and the expression in his eyes made her chest ache. Guilt. Regret. Something else she couldn't name. Emma, there are things about me you don't know. Things I should have told you before now. Then tell me. He opened his mouth, and Emma's phone rang. She ignored it. Jake. It rang again. And again. Answer it, Jake said quietly. Emma pulled out her phone, frustration making her movements sharp. Unknown number. She almost declined, but something made her answer. Hello? Is this Emma Chen? A woman's voice, professional but urgent. Yes, who is? This is Virginia Mason Hospital. We have your mother here. She was brought in by ambulance about 30 minutes ago. She's stable, but she's asking for you. Can you come right away? Emma's world tilted. What happened? Is she okay? The doctor will explain everything when you arrive. But please come as soon as you can. The call ended. Emma stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, her mind blank with shock. Emma? Jake's hand on her shoulder. What's wrong? My mom. Her voice sounded far away. She's in the hospital. I need to go. I'll drive you. Your car is. I'll drive you, he repeated, already pulling out his keys. Come on. They half ran to the parking lot. Emma's hands were shaking so badly she couldn't get her seatbelt buckled. Jake reached over and did it for her, his movements quick and sure. She's going to be okay, he said. You don't know that. No. But she's stable. That's good. Emma nodded, trying to breathe. Her mother. In the hospital. The woman who'd raised her alone after her father died, who'd worked 2 jobs to put Emma through college, who called every Sunday like clockwork to ask if Emma was eating enough vegetables. Jake's phone rang. He glanced at it, declined the call, and started the engine. You should answer that, Emma said numbly. It might be important. Nothing's more important than this. His phone rang again. Jake declined it again, his jaw set. They drove in silence, Jake navigating traffic with the same confident ease Emma had noticed before. Her mind was spinning, worry about her mother, confusion about Jake and Marcus, the horrible scene with Veronica. It was too much. Everything was too much. Jake, she said as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. What you were going to tell me? About who you are. Can it wait? He put the car in park and looked at her. Really looked at her, like he was memorizing her face. Yeah, he said softly. It can wait. But Emma saw something in his eyes that made her cold despite the warm day. Something that looked like goodbye. Come on, Jake said, already opening his door. Let's go find your mom. Chapter 3. Emma's mother looked small in the hospital bed. That was the thought that kept circling through Emma's mind as she sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, holding her mother's hand. Margaret Chen had always been this force of nature, working double shifts, attending every school event, somehow making Emma feel like they had everything even when they had nothing. But now, with tubes running from her arm and monitors beeping steadily, she looked fragile. The doctor said it went well, Emma said for the 3rd time, as much to herself as to her mother. You're going to be fine. Stop fussing. Margaret's voice was weak but familiar. I'm not dead yet. Mom. What? It's true. Margaret squeezed Emma's hand. Where's that young man who brought you? Jake. He's in the waiting room. They said only family. Nonsense. Go get him. I want to thank him. Emma hesitated. After the confrontation with Marcus Chen, after those cryptic words about Jake's father and family business, she didn't know what to think. But she couldn't deal with that now. Not when her mother had just come out of emergency surgery. She found Jake exactly where she'd left him, sitting in the waiting room with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. His phone was in his hand, but he wasn't looking at it. When he heard her footsteps, he looked up immediately. How is she? Stable. The surgery went well, but... Emma's voice cracked. She hadn't let herself fall apart yet, had kept it together through the doctor's explanation and her mother's weak jokes. But suddenly it all hit her. They found blockages. Severe ones. She needs more surgery. A bypass. And the cost. Jake stood up, closed the distance between them. How much? $80,000. Maybe more. Our insurance will cover some of it, but not enough, and the payment plans still require a huge deposit, and I don't have. She was crying now, hating herself for it. I don't have anything. I'm drowning in student debt and my salary is a joke and I can't lose her. Emma. Jake's hands were on her shoulders, steady and warm. Let me help. What? Let me pay for it. The surgery, whatever she needs. I can. Emma stepped back like he'd slapped her. No. Emma. No. You're between jobs, Jake. You count out crumpled bills to pay for dinner. I'm not taking your money. It's not about the money. Of course it's about the money. Her voice was too loud for the quiet waiting room. An elderly man in the corner looked up from his magazine. Emma lowered her voice. You can't afford this. I won't let you go into debt for someone you barely know. Jake's jaw tightened. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Thank you for driving me here. Thank you for staying. But I can't accept your help. I'll figure something out. She walked away before he could argue, back to her mother's room. Her hands were shaking. $80,000. She could get a high-interest loan, maybe pick up freelance work on the side. She could survive on ramen and give up her apartment, move somewhere cheaper. She could. She could call Trevor. The thought made her stomach turn, but it was there. Trevor Young, her ex-boyfriend from college, now a hotshot investment banker who'd been calling her for months. He'd made it clear he wanted to get back together, made it equally clear that money was no object. She'd turned him down because she'd learned the hard way that Trevor's generosity came with strings attached. But for her mother's life? She'd tie herself in whatever strings were necessary. Emma spent that night in the hospital chair, dozing fitfully while her mother slept. Jake had left without another word, which hurt more than it should have. When morning came, Emma's back ached and her phone was full of missed calls from work. She called Richard from the hospital cafeteria, nursing terrible coffee. Emma, where are you? We have the Morrison account review meeting in an hour. I'm at the hospital. My mother had emergency surgery. I sent you an email last night. Oh. Richard sounded distracted. Right. Sorry about that. But Emma, this meeting is crucial. We need all hands on deck. Richard, my mother almost died. And I'm very sorry about that. But we all have responsibilities. If you're not here, I'll have to mark you as taking unpaid leave. Emma closed her eyes. Fine. Mark it. She hung up before he could respond. Unpaid leave she couldn't afford, for a mother who needed surgery she definitely couldn't afford. Perfect. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jake, how is your mother? Emma stared at the message. She should respond. She should thank him again for driving her. But something about the way he'd offered money so casually, like $80,000 was nothing, bothered her. Like he didn't understand what that kind of debt meant. She deleted the message without responding. 2 days passed in a blur of hospital visits and insurance phone calls. Emma's mother was stable but would need the bypass surgery within the month. The hospital's financial counselor had been sympathetic but clear. They needed a $20,000 deposit before they could schedule it. Jake didn't call. Didn't text again. Emma told herself she didn't care, but she checked her phone obsessively anyway. By the third day, she'd moved from hurt to angry. She'd defended him to Veronica, worried about him during that confrontation with Marcus Chin. And now he'd just disappeared without explanation. She was filling out loan applications on her phone when her phone rang. Richard. Emma, I need you to come in tomorrow. Emergency meeting. I'm still on leave. This isn't optional. The whole company's required to attend. He paused. We're being acquired. Emma's stomach dropped. What? Some massive corporation bought us out. The new owners are taking over next week. Everyone's jobs are under review. If you want to keep yours, be here tomorrow at 9. The call ended. Emma sat in her apartment, her tiny, too expensive apartment that she might not be able to afford much longer, and felt the walls closing in. She pulled up Trevor's contact. Her finger hovered over the call button. She pressed it. Trevor answered on the second ring, his voice warm with surprise. Emma Chen. I was beginning to think you'd blocked my number. Hi, Trevor. Everything okay? You sound stressed. I need to talk to you. Are you free for coffee? For you? Always. But forget coffee. I'm going to a charity gala tomorrow night. Come with me. We can talk there. Trevor, I'm not really in the mood for. It's for a good cause. Children's Hospital fundraiser. Plus, some of the donors might be useful contacts if you're looking for financial help. You mentioned your mother's medical situation last time we talked. Emma closed her eyes. Of course he'd bring that up. Trevor never forgot a detail that could work in his favor. Okay, she said. What time? The next day's emergency meeting was worse than Emma had imagined. Richard stood at the front of the conference room looking like he'd aged 10 years, while their company's founder, a man Emma had met exactly once, explained that they'd been acquired by a larger firm. This is a tremendous opportunity for growth, the founder said, not meeting anyone's eyes. The acquiring company has assured us that they value our talent and expertise. Translation: half of us are getting fired, whispered Emma's coworker Daniel. The new CEO will be visiting next week to meet with each department individually. I encourage you all to make a good impression. The meeting dissolved into anxious chatter. Emma walked out feeling numb. She'd survived 3 years at this job, worked unpaid overtime, saved the Helios account. And now some faceless corporation was deciding her future. That evening, she put on the one nice dress she owned, a simple black number she'd bought for job interviews years ago, and met Trevor at his downtown apartment. He answered the door in a perfectly tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. You look beautiful, he said, and she could hear the calculation in his voice. Trevor had always been like this, charming when he wanted something, cold when he didn't. Thanks. You look nice too. The gala was held at a waterfront venue that dripped with old money. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, waiters carrying champagne on silver trays. Emma felt out of place immediately, hyper-aware of her discount dress and the fact that her shoes were 2 seasons old. Trevor guided her through the crowd with a hand on her lower back, introducing her to venture capitalists and hedge fund managers whose names she immediately forgot. She smiled and nodded and tried not to think about her mother in a hospital bed or her job hanging by a thread. You're being quiet, Trevor said, handing her a glass of champagne. Just overwhelmed. Don't be. Half these people inherited their money. The other half got lucky. There's nothing special about them. He gestured around the room. See that guy by the bar? Made his fortune in crypto before the crash. Total idiot, but he timed it right. And that woman in the red dress? Married a tech CEO. Divorced him 2 years later with half his company. Emma took a sip of champagne, which probably cost more than her grocery budget. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand something, Em. Money doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. It just means you have more options. He moved closer. And I want to give you those options. Your mother's surgery, your student loans, whatever you need. I can help. Trevor. I'm not asking for anything in return. Well, maybe dinner a few times a week. A chance to prove I've changed since college. His smile was practiced. What do you say? Emma looked at him. Trevor Young, who'd cheated on her their senior year and spent the last 3 years trying to buy his way back into her life. But he was offering her mother's surgery on a silver platter. I need to think about it, she said. Fair enough. Come on, let me show you the donor wall. You might recognize some names. He led her to a corridor lined with photographs of major contributors. Emma recognized a few faces from magazines, tech moguls, old Seattle families, a few celebrities. Trevor kept talking, but Emma had stopped listening. Because there, in a gold frame, was a photograph that made her blood run cold. It showed a younger man in a tuxedo at what looked like a formal event. He was standing with an older couple, all three of them smiling for the camera. The caption read, Morrison Tech Foundation, CEO Jacob Morrison and Family, Annual Gala 2022. The man in the tuxedo was Jake. Not the Jake she knew, with his worn jeans and old jacket. This Jake wore confidence like armor, his tuxedo probably worth thousands, his smile polished and professional. He looked every inch the CEO. The tech billionaire. The man who definitely did not count out crumpled bills to pay for dinner. Emma? You okay? Trevor had noticed she'd stopped walking. That photo, she managed. Who is that? Trevor glanced at it. Oh, Jake Morrison. Yeah, he's one of the richest tech CEOs in the country. Morrison Tech, huge company. Worth about $800 million, give or take. He shrugged. Why? You know him? Emma couldn't speak. $800 million. CEO. Morrison Tech. Kind of an eccentric guy, Trevor continued, oblivious to Emma's shock. I've heard he likes to rough it, sometimes, drives old cars and wears cheap clothes to stay grounded, or whatever. Honestly, it's insulting to people who are actually struggling. Like poverty is some kind of game to him. The room tilted. Emma grabbed the wall for support. All of it. Every single moment. The cheap restaurant where he'd counted out bills. The beat-up Honda. The between opportunities excuse. The way he'd offered to pay for her mother's surgery like it was nothing, because to him, it was nothing. $80,000 was pocket change to someone worth $800 million. I need some air, Emma said. She walked away from Trevor, from the gala, from the photograph of Jake Morrison in his tuxedo. Outside, the cold air hit her face, but it didn't clear the fog in her brain. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. You're Jake Morrison. CEO of Morrison Tech worth $800 million. She hit send before she could stop herself. Then she typed another message. You lied to me. About everything. Her phone rang immediately. Jake. Emma stared at it, rage and humiliation warring in her chest. She declined the call. It rang again. And again. Finally, she answered. What? Where are you? Jake's voice was urgent. Emma, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you let me think you were broke? Why you watched me panic about money and bills and my mother's surgery while you're worth almost $1 billion? I'm coming to you. Where are you? No. Don't. I don't want to see you. Emma, please. She hung up. Her hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. She should go back inside, make an excuse to Trevor, go home. But the thought of facing all those wealthy people, knowing that Jake was one of them, that he'd been playing dress up while she'd been drowning, made her sick. She called an Uber instead, left Trevor without explanation. By the time she got home, Jake was already there. He was leaning against the wall outside her apartment, still in his worn jeans and old jacket. The disguise. The costume he wore to play at being poor while real people suffered. How did you know where I live? Emma demanded. You told me. The night of your mother's surgery. He straightened up, his amber eyes locked on hers. Emma, I need to explain. You need to leave. Not until you hear me out. Hear you out? Emma's voice rose. You lied to me, Jake. Every single day. You watched me defend you to my coworkers. You listened to me worry about money and bills and losing my apartment. You made me feel sorry for you. I never asked you to feel sorry for me. You didn't have to. The crumpled bills, the beat-up car, the whole between opportunities act. What was I supposed to think? She was crying now, hot angry tears. Do you know how humiliating this is? I thought I was dating someone who understood what it's like to struggle. But you were just slumming it. Playing poor for fun. Jake's jaw tightened. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Enlighten me. Every woman I've ever dated, every single one, only wanted my money. His voice was low, intense. They wanted the penthouse and the cars and the lifestyle. They didn't care about me. They cared about my bank account. So I started going out without all of that. I wanted to meet someone who could love me, not my net worth. So you lied. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Emma's voice cracked. You watched me drown. You knew about my student loans and my mother's surgery and my job hanging by a thread, and you did nothing. I tried to help. I offered. You offered me money I thought you didn't have. I turned down $80,000 because I thought you couldn't afford it. She was shouting now, past caring if her neighbors heard. Do you know what that feels like? To find out you refused help because you believed someone's lie? Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. You wouldn't have accepted it if you'd known the truth. You would have felt like it was charity. Maybe I should have felt that way. Maybe that's exactly what it would have been. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. Emma's apartment door opened, and her neighbor Mrs. Kim poked her head out. Everything okay out here? Fine, Emma said, not looking away from Jake. Sorry for the noise. Mrs. Kim hesitated, then retreated. Emma heard the lock click. There's more, Jake said quietly. More lies? I'm the one acquiring your company. Emma went very still. What? Morrison Tech is buying out your firm. I found out about the financial troubles when I was researching Helios Industries, after you told me about almost losing the account. Your company was failing. I bought it to save it. To save your job. You, Emma couldn't process it. You bought my entire company? Yes. Because of me? Because I didn't want you to lose your job on top of everything else. And my mother's surgery? Emma's voice was hollow. She already knew the answer. Jake didn't flinch. Paid for. Anonymously. Through the hospital's financial assistance program. They think it's a grant. Emma felt like she'd been punched. You had no right. Your mother needed surgery. You had no right to make that decision for me. To take away my choice. She was crying again, but this time from something more complicated than anger. I didn't ask you to save me, Jake. I didn't ask you to fix my life. You should have told me the truth. If I'd told you the truth on that first date, would you have given me a chance? I don't know. But at least it would have been honest. Jake stepped closer. Emma, I fell for you. The real you. The woman who defended a guy she thought was broke in front of her whole office. The woman who solved a $1 million client crisis in the back of a Honda Civic. I didn't want you to change because of my money. I wanted. You wanted a fantasy, Emma cut him off. You wanted to pretend you weren't who you are. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. But I got a lie. She pushed past him to her apartment door, fumbling with her keys. Emma, please. Go back to your penthouse, Jake. Or your mansion. Wherever people worth $800 million live. She got the door open. And stay away from me. She slammed the door before he could respond, then slid down to the floor and buried her face in her hands. Outside, she heard Jake's footsteps. A pause. Then, quietly, his voice through the door, "I'm sorry. For all of it." The footsteps retreated. Emma sat on her floor in her too expensive apartment, wearing her discount dress, and sobbed. Chapter 4. Emma woke up on her couch at 6 in the morning, still in her dress from the gala, with a headache that felt like someone was driving nails into her skull. Her phone was full of notifications, missed calls from unknown numbers, texts from coworkers, and 3 voicemails from Richard that she deleted without listening to. She was making coffee when someone knocked on her door. Emma almost ignored it. If it was Jake, she'd slam the door in his face. If it was Trevor, she'd do worse. But the knock came again, firm and persistent. She looked through the peephole and saw a woman she didn't recognize. Late 30s, dark hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing a professional pantsuit and carrying a leather briefcase. She looked like a lawyer, which immediately put Emma on edge. "Who is it?" Emma called through the door. "My name is Sarah Chen. I work for Jake Morrison. Please, I need 5 minutes of your time. It's important." Emma almost said no. But something in the woman's voice made her hesitate. She opened the door, keeping the chain on. "I'm not interested in whatever Jake has to say. He doesn't know I'm here." Sarah's eyes were direct, honest. "What I'm about to tell you could cost me my job, but you deserve to know the truth. The whole truth, not the version Jake gave you." Emma stared at her for a long moment, then slid the chain off and opened the door. Sarah stepped inside, taking in Emma's rumpled dress and exhausted face without comment. She set her briefcase on the coffee table and pulled out a tablet. 3 years ago, Sarah began without preamble. Jake Morrison was engaged to a woman named Victoria Hastings. Wealthy family, all the right connections. 6 weeks before the wedding, Jake collapsed at a company dinner. His blood work showed arsenic poisoning. Emma's stomach turned. What? Victoria had been poisoning him. Small doses over several months. She thought she was subtle, but Jake's head of security caught her on camera tampering with his drinks. Sarah swiped through photos on the tablet, a beautiful blonde woman, security footage timestamps, medical reports. She was arrested. The case was settled quietly. Victoria's family paid restitution in exchange for keeping it out of the press. Why would she? Jake's will left everything to his spouse. $800 million plus controlling interest in Morrison Tech. Victoria wasn't interested in Jake. She was interested in his inheritance. Emma sank onto her couch, her coffee forgotten. That's insane. That's wealth. Sarah's voice was matter-of-fact. After Victoria, Jake became paranoid, understandably. He started investigating his own company because he suspected corporate espionage. Money was disappearing, deals were falling through, competitors were getting insider information. Someone close to him was betraying him. So he went into hiding. Not hiding. Investigating. The ratty clothes, the old car, the whole between opportunities act, it gave him freedom to move around without security, without his family or board members breathing down his neck. He could meet people without them knowing who he was. See how they really behaved. Emma thought about Jake at the restaurant, calmly counting out bills. At the fundraiser, standing up to Veronica's cruelty without flinching. The way he'd listened to her talk about her job, her mother, her life, really listened, like she mattered. What about Marcus Chin? Emma asked. At the fundraiser, he called Jake by his last name. There was history there. Sarah's expression tightened. Marcus is Jake's half-brother. Illegitimate son of Jake's father. Their father had an affair years ago, and Marcus's mother was paid off to stay quiet. Marcus grew up knowing he had a wealthy family that didn't acknowledge him. When Jake's father died, everything went to Jake. Marcus got nothing. God. Marcus has spent the last 5 years trying to destroy Morrison Tech. He believes Jake stole his birthright. He's cultivated relationships with Jake's enemies, fed information to competitors, done everything he can to destabilize the company. Sarah leaned forward. Emma, Marcus Chen is business partners with Trevor Young. They've been working together for months. Emma's blood went cold. Trevor. My ex-boyfriend Trevor? Yes. And there's more. Your colleague, Veronica Chen? She's Marcus's cousin. She was planted at your company 6 months ago, right before Morrison Tech started considering the acquisition. The room spun. Emma gripped the edge of the couch. That's not possible. Veronica's worked there for 6 months. Check her employment records. Sarah pulled up documents on her tablet. Marcus and Trevor orchestrated everything. They knew Jake was investigating undercover. They've been waiting for him to slip up, to get close to someone they could use against him. Me, Emma whispered. You. Sarah's voice was gentle now. They've been watching you since the first date. They knew Jake cared about you, which made you a target. I'm sorry, Emma. You got caught in the crossfire of something that has nothing to do with you. Emma felt sick. All of it, Trevor's sudden interest after years of silence, Veronica's cruelty at the fundraiser, even the timing of the company acquisition. None of it was coincidence. Why are you telling me this? Emma asked. Jake said his lawyer told him to cut ties with me completely. Because what I'm about to show you is going to be all over the news in about, Sarah checked her watch, 2 hours. And you need to be prepared. She turned the tablet toward Emma. The headline made Emma's vision blur. Gold digger scandal, marketing coordinator seduces tech CEO for company acquisition. Below it were photos. Emma and Jake at the restaurant, at the fundraiser, outside her apartment building. The article painted a picture of a calculated seduction, Emma befriending Jake, manipulating him, using her access to insider information about the acquisition to benefit herself. There were quotes from anonymous sources, claiming Emma had bragged about her plan. Screenshots of text messages that looked like hers but weren't, conversations about using Jake for money, about securing her job through any means necessary. This isn't real, Emma breathed. I never said any of this. I never. I know. But Trevor and Marcus are very good at what they do. They've fabricated evidence, paid for testimony, even hacked your phone to create those fake text messages. By the time you wake up this morning, your name will be destroyed. Emma's phone started buzzing. Then it didn't stop. Calls, texts, notifications, all flooding in at once. She looked at the screen and saw her personal email had hundreds of new messages. The news was already spreading. Oh God, Emma whispered. My mother. She'll see this. I'm sorry, Sarah said quietly. I tried to stop it. Jake tried to stop it. But Marcus has connections in the media, and once the story was out. Emma's phone rang. Her mother's number. She answered with shaking hands. Mom. Emma Chen, what is this I'm seeing on the news? Her mother's voice was shaking. They're saying that you used this man for money. It's not true, Mom. None of it's true. I didn't know who Jake was. I swear. How could you not know? How could you be so foolish? Mom, please. I didn't raise you like this. To chase after rich men, to scheme and manipulate. I didn't. Emma was crying now. Mom, I loved him. I thought he was just, I thought. The line went dead. Emma stared at her phone, then at Sarah. My job, Emma said numbly. They'll fire me. They already have. I'm sorry. Richard called an emergency meeting an hour ago. You've been terminated for ethical violations. Emma laughed, a broken sound. Of course. Of course I have. She stood up, walked to her window, stared out at the city that suddenly felt hostile. Somewhere out there, Jake was fighting for his company. Marcus and Trevor were celebrating their victory. Veronica was probably already spinning this to the rest of the office. And Emma had nothing. No job, no reputation, no future. There's one more thing, Sarah said. Jake's lawyers are advising him to release a statement distancing himself from you completely. It's the only way to protect Morrison Tech from the scandal. If he doesn't, the board will vote to remove him as CEO. Then he should do it, Emma said. He should protect his company. Is that really what you want? Emma turned from the window. What I want doesn't matter. I'm toxic now. Everything I touch turns to poison. Jake will be better off without me. Sarah studied her for a long moment, then stood up. For what it's worth, I think you're wrong. Jake Morrison has dated models and heiresses and society princesses. You're the first person I've ever seen him look at like you matter more than the company. She left her business card on the coffee table. If you need anything, legal help, protection, anything, call me. I'll do what I can. After Sarah left, Emma sat in her apartment and watched her life unravel in real time. The news story spread across social media. Her old college classmates were commenting, some defending her, most condemning. Someone had found her LinkedIn profile and left vicious messages. Her phone kept ringing, reporters, she realized, and she finally turned it off completely. She spent 3 days like that. Hiding in her apartment, surviving on delivery food and sleeping pills. Her mother wouldn't answer her calls. Her former coworkers texted a few times, but the messages were cautious, distant. No one wanted to be associated with the scandal. On the 4th day, Emma made a decision. She wasn't going down without a fight. She turned her phone back on and started digging through her old work emails. If Veronica, Marcus, and Trevor had orchestrated this, there would be evidence. There had to be. People didn't pull off conspiracies without leaving traces. It took her 6 hours and 4 cups of coffee, but she found it. An email from Veronica to an unknown address, sent 3 weeks ago. The address wasn't in Emma's contacts, but the subject line made her pause. Morrison Acquisition Timeline. Emma opened it. Inside was a detailed breakdown of the acquisition process, information Veronica shouldn't have had. And at the bottom, a line that made Emma's pulse race. Trevor confirmed the target is emotionally attached. Proceeding with Phase 2. Marcus standing by for media push. The target. That was Jake. Emma kept digging. More emails, carefully worded but damning. References to the plan, to leverage, to removing Morrison from the equation. She found a document Veronica had created, a fake dossier on Emma, complete with fabricated quotes and falsified financial records. The metadata showed it had been created 2 weeks before the scandal broke. They'd planned this. All of it. Down to the last detail. Emma downloaded everything, backed it up to 3 different drives, and then called Sarah's number. I have evidence, Emma said when Sarah answered. Emails, documents, everything. But I need help. If I try to use this alone, they'll bury me. Where are you? My apartment. Stay there. I'm sending security. Don't talk to anyone, don't open your door, don't. Sarah, there's one more thing. To make this work, I need to testify. In court. On the record. Emma's voice was steady now. Trevor will sue me. He has lawyers and money and he'll drag this out forever. But if I don't do this, he wins. They all win. There was a pause. Emma, if you testify, your life will be hell. The media attention, the legal battles. My life is already hell. At least this way, I go down fighting. Jake will want to help. Then let him help. But I need to do this myself first. I need to prove I'm not the person they say I am. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Emma spent that time preparing with Sarah and a team of lawyers Jake had hired, not for himself, but for her. She didn't see Jake. His lawyers advised against contact during the legal proceedings, and Emma agreed. If he showed up now, it would only feed the gold digger narrative. The night before the hearing, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat in her apartment, going over her testimony again and again. Sarah had warned her that Trevor's lawyers would be vicious, that they'd try to break her on the stand. Emma was ready. The courthouse was a circus. News vans lined the street, reporters shouting questions as Emma climbed the steps. She kept her head down, flanked by security Sarah had provided, and didn't respond to any of them. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Emma saw Trevor sitting with his lawyers, 3 of them, all in expensive suits. He caught her eye and smiled, confident and cold. Emma took her seat and waited. The hearing began. Trevor's lawyers presented their case first. Emma Chen, a gold-digging opportunist who had seduced Jake Morrison for financial gain. They showed the fake text messages, the fabricated emails, testimony from witnesses who claimed Emma had bragged about her plan. It was brutal. Systematic. Designed to destroy her completely. Then it was Emma's turn. She walked to the stand on shaking legs and was sworn in. Sarah's lead lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, approached with a tablet. Ms. Chen, can you tell the court where you were on September 15th of this year? I was at work. At my former company. And did you send any emails that day? I sent several work emails, yes. Did you send an email to Mr. Trevor Young discussing the Morrison Tech acquisition? No. Did you discuss the acquisition with anyone outside your company? No. I didn't even know about the acquisition until my boss announced it. Patricia pulled up the fake emails on a screen for the courtroom. These emails show you discussing the acquisition in detail with Mr. Young. Are you saying they're falsified? Yes. How can you be certain? Emma took a breath. This was it. Because the metadata on those emails shows they were created on September 20th and backdated. I have the original server logs from my company's email system. The emails Trevor's lawyers presented don't exist in those logs. They were fabricated. The courtroom erupted. Trevor's lawyers were on their feet, objecting. The judge called for order. Patricia continued calmly. Ms. Chen, do you have evidence of this fabrication? Yes. I also have emails from Veronica Chen, Mr. Trevor Yang's business partner's cousin, discussing the plan to fabricate evidence against me. I have documents showing Veronica created a false dossier on me 2 weeks before the scandal broke. And I have financial records showing Trevor Young paid Veronica $50,000 the day before the story went to the press. She pulled out printouts, handed them to Patricia. The lawyer distributed copies to the judge and to Trevor's legal team. Trevor's confident smile had vanished. One of his lawyers was frantically whispering in his ear. Your Honor, Patricia said, we have sufficient evidence that Mr. Young and his associates orchestrated a conspiracy to defame Ms. Chen and manipulate Mr. Morrison. We're filing countercharges for defamation, fraud, and corporate espionage. The judge reviewed the documents, his expression grave. Mr. Yang's counsel, do you have a response? Trevor's head lawyer stood, but before he could speak, the courtroom doors opened. Jake Morrison walked in. But this wasn't the Jake Emma knew. This was the CEO she'd seen in the photograph at the gala, power suit, perfectly styled hair, an aura of command that made everyone in the courtroom turn to look. He was flanked by 4 lawyers and a woman Emma recognized as his head of security. He walked straight to the front of the courtroom, his eyes locked on Emma. Then he turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'm Jacob Morrison, CEO of Morrison Tech. I'd like to address the court, if I may. The judge looked surprised but nodded. Proceed, Mr. Morrison. Jake's voice was clear, authoritative. Everything Ms. Chen has stated is true. I can provide corroborating evidence from my company's investigation into corporate espionage. Marcus Chen, Trevor Yang, and Veronica Chen have been working together to destabilize Morrison Tech and destroy my reputation. He paused. Emma Chen is not a gold digger. She's not a conspirator. She's the woman I fell in love with, and the only person in this entire mess who's been honest from the beginning. The courtroom was dead silent. Jake turned to Emma, and his expression softened. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth sooner. I'm sorry you got hurt because of my mistakes. But I'm not sorry I met you. And I'm not letting them destroy you. He looked back at the judge. I'm publicly claiming Emma as my partner, business and personal. My legal team will be pursuing charges against Mr. Yang and his associates to the fullest extent of the law. And I'm prepared to use every resource at my disposal to clear Emma's name. Trevor was pale now. His lawyers were having a heated whispered conversation. Emma just stared at Jake, unable to process what was happening. The judge banged his gavel. Given the new evidence and testimony, I'm dismissing the charges against Ms. Chen. Mr. Yang, you and your associates will be facing investigation. Court is adjourned. The room erupted. Reporters were shouting questions. Trevor's lawyers were trying to usher him out a side door. Jake's security was forming a barrier around Emma. Jake reached her first. Hi, he said quietly, over the chaos. Hi, Emma managed. Can we talk? Somewhere not here? Emma nodded, and Jake's security cleared a path through the courthouse. They ended up in a private conference room, alone for the first time since their fight outside her apartment. I'm stepping down as CEO, Jake said. Temporarily. The board agreed to it this morning. Emma's eyes widened. Jake, no. It's already done. I need to focus on cleaning up this mess, and I can't do that while running the company. But I'm not leaving Morrison Tech. He pulled out a folder. I'm restructuring. Creating a new marketing division. And I want you to head it. Emma stared at the folder like it might explode. What? Your Helios campaign was brilliant. I had it reviewed by 3 independent consultants. Before any of this scandal broke. They all said the same thing: you have vision, strategic thinking, and an instinct for storytelling that most marketers never develop. You earned this position, Emma. Not because of me. Because you're that good. Jake, I just lost my job. My reputation is destroyed. No one will work with me. Everyone will work with you once the truth comes out fully. Which it will, I promise. But this isn't charity. This isn't me trying to fix things. This is me offering you a job you're qualified for based purely on merit. Emma looked at the folder, then at Jake. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. He stepped closer. But before you decide anything about the job, I need to know something. About us. Is there still an us? Emma's heart was pounding. You lied to me. I did. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't trust you with the truth. I'm sorry you got hurt because of my paranoia. His amber eyes were intense. But Emma, everything I felt was real. The way I feel about you is real. And if you'll give me another chance, I promise, no more disguises. No more secrets. Just me. The real me. And who is the real you? Emma asked. Jake smiled, that crooked smile she'd fallen for on their first date. I'm a CEO who works too much. I drive a Tesla but I miss my old Honda. I like dive bars but I know too much about wine. I make terrible jokes when I'm nervous. And I'm completely in love with a marketing coordinator who defended me when she thought I was broke and called me out when she learned I wasn't. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. I'm not taking the job because we're together. I wouldn't respect you if you did. And we're starting over. Real dates. Real truth. No more playing poor. Deal. Although I reserve the right to wear jeans sometimes. Fine. But if you ever count out crumpled bills again, I'm dumping you. Jake laughed and pulled her into his arms. Emma let herself sink into the embrace, feeling safe for the first time in days. "One more thing," she said against his chest. "You announced to the press that I'm heading the marketing division because I'm qualified, not because I'm your girlfriend. My reputation recovers on my own merit. Already drafted the press release." Jake pulled back to look at her. "You're amazing, you know that?" "I'm learning," Emma said, and kissed him. Epilogue. 6 months later, Emma walked into Mercado wearing a designer dress she'd bought with her own money. Her salary as head of marketing for Morrison Tech's new division was more than generous, and found Jake waiting at the same table where they'd had their first date. He stood when he saw her, and Emma's breath caught like it always did. Jake in a suit was devastating. Jake smiling at her like she was the only person in the room was even worse. "Hi," he said. "Hi yourself." Emma sat down, accepted the menu from the waiter. "Feeling nostalgic?" "Something like that. I figured we should celebrate." "The Helios expansion?" "That's not until." "Not the expansion. This." Jake pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and Emma's heart stopped. 6 months ago, I sat at this table and counted out crumpled bills while you died of embarrassment. Tonight, I'm paying with a black card. You're paying with your own company card. And I'm hoping, really hoping, you'll let me ask you something." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a diamond that caught the restaurant's soft light. "Emma Chen, will you marry me? For real this time. No disguises, no secrets, just us figuring out life together." Emma looked at the ring, then at Jake. His hands were shaking slightly, she realized. He was nervous. Jake Morrison, CEO worth $800 million, was nervous about her answer. She started laughing. "That's not the response I was hoping for," Jake said, but he was smiling. "Sorry. I'm just thinking about how far we've come. From crumpled bills to this. From you pretending to be broke to me running your marketing division. It's insane. Is that a yes?" Emma took the ring from the box and slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "That's a yes," she said. "On one condition." "Name it." "We honeymoon somewhere cheap. I want to see if you remember how to rough it." Jake laughed and pulled her close, kissing her while the entire restaurant watched. Emma didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see that she'd found something real in the middle of all the lies and disguises and corporate conspiracies. She'd found someone who loved her, not for what she could give him, not for what he could give her, but for exactly who they both were. Even if one of them was worth $800 million. As they left the restaurant that night, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, Veronica, Marcus, and Trevor all pled guilty. "It's over." Emma showed Jake the message. He squeezed her hand. "It's over," he repeated. Emma looked at the ring on her finger, then at the man she loved. "No," she said, smiling. "It's just beginning." The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.